You're going?
We're supposed to have a craft table.
We do. It's at 1 o'clock. We're going to walk over there and come back. Yeah, we're here for what? Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's us. Yeah. My mom works in the city, and they were shooting this movie. So she texted me. She's like, "How do I sneak to the craft table?" I was like, "Cause our friends tried and failed." I was like, "Put two fingers on your ear, and go and walk right by." So she goes, and she texts me back, "It works." I said, "Of course it works." Here's your yeah. I was like, "Where's your credentials?" Yeah. You're fine. I don't care.
The shame
But-
should have a little thing.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Just put your hand over it. They don't go look for a wire. Yeah. Stupid.
That's fun.
But
Really
because
work?
you don't got the balls to stop to produce. You know, someone looks important. You know what I mean? You think the guy who's making $100 a day is gonna stop you? And plus, it's craft service. It's not like it's, you know what I mean, the end of the world. You know, it's not like you're like you can't walk up to a camera truck and walk in and go
And
I'm
start
just gonna,
taking machinery.
yeah, I'm just gonna grab this 10 pounds. Someone's gonna stop you. But. All right, mic on. Yep.
Can't believe it. I almost.
I'm hoping I would have caught that, but who knows? That's my problem. It's like I'm trying to catch everything, and
Yeah.
you can only catch so much. You know, which is why there's mistakes.
Where does she work?
She works at Columbus Circle, in that hospital.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's got a fucking crazy job. She teaches at an inpatient long-term drug rehabilitation place.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like they're in high school, but they're not in high school. But she's like, it's the greatest job ever, because she's like, when I was in Roosevelt or Uniondale, you know, someone was threatening, I was just me. Now if there's a problem, I call the fucking social worker in or the therapist in, and they just take it away. You know, they do all the discipline, they do all the everything. She's like, it's the
Really?
easiest job in the world. Not easy, but it's
Is it state or?
yeah, it's a city school. So technically it's called Restart Institute, but it's a PS. It's a public school.
Yeah,
So-
but is she a state employee or city employee?
Yeah, she's a city employee, and she finally got this state. So she went from because she worked 10 years in the city before going to the island. So she got the island time to count as her city time,
Wow.
and they counted. She's adjunct at Suffolk for a couple of years. They counted that too. So she went from 10 years into the system to 22 years in the system.
Holy God! Thank God.
Yeah, and then so now instead of like working till she's 90, technically she can get out at 62, which is 7 years. But she's gonna try to stay at 65 because she has a better benefit.
Yeah.
But worst comes to worst, she can retire at 62 if she has to.
Oh, thank God.
So yeah, it was like pretty fucking epic news.
Hey man, she was devastated. She was.
Yeah. Well then you know she it's all the sickness when my dad was going on. She wasn't working, you know, like
Right.
so she went from like nothing to pretty sustainable. She's
Thank God.
yeah, I'm pretty happy about. All right, so that's recording, and we're good. So hit. All right. So, page 49 question. Okay.
Jedi means they're in it to win it and they can't help it. The term that I use is Gen I. And recently in an article in The Atlantic, this big deal article, it's The Atlantic, the term the author used was iGen. So obviously we're thinking about the same thing. And the reason why I use Gen I is because it's a generation that is interactive. And that's the big difference between them. Were they built for this? Were they manufactured towards this? And how it compares to TV, radio? Those are all passive mediums. Today, with online, the internet, web, it's an interactive medium, so you have to commit to it. So when people talk about millennials, digital natives, all of those terms are great, but they kind of deal with the sense of when they were born, were they born around these things? And to me, that doesn't make you Gen I. What makes you Gen I is that you're committed to this lifestyle. You've explored it, you've tasted it, you didn't run off to Brooklyn and get a man bun. You're not trying to rebel against it and force into it. You understand its worth, you're in it, you understand what it will do for you, You're not there because you were forced to be part of it. You're in it. You enjoy it. You live it. You're not just a digital native that grew up with it, or you're not a digital immigrant to it. None of those things. Gen I means that you were born into the right time. Your interest and curiosity is there. You were kind of not inundated in it, but really, really included. And you have an iterative personality where you will look at the same thing 10 times. But the other side of it is these individuals are isolated. They're isolated from friends, from real life. They're isolated almost happily, which isn't a good thing. And I believe a lot of this was not nurtured by, but kind of brought up to them through the factor of being separated. Yes, certain calves don't make veal. Certain calves make incredible veal. And I think this generation of Gen I doesn't have that lower percentage of some fail, some succeed. I think if you're in this and you've been raised in it and you've been kind of forced into it, and the ones that really can do it, this is an 80% rate of acceptance. And they are making the perfect consumer. If you take a look at the effects that online has had on retail, on academia, on entertainment, on information, newspapers, magazines, it's pretty impressive. So it's not a slight curve, it's a massive curve with massive effects. So Gen I, interactive, isolated, iterative, many different pieces here make up this group.
All right, moving on. Elaborate on moved elsewhere and the rise of daycare.
Okay. One of the key components in this veal analogy or metaphor, I never get them right, I believe this one's an analogy, is that they were born, separated from the herd, and moved elsewhere. And moved elsewhere is that concept of daycare. I will never agree that there is no difference between the home and somewhere else. Home is what you make of it, and home is where you hang your hat. But the question sometimes becomes, where are you hanging your hat? And when you have an issue of nature and nurture, and you're being nurtured in an environment that maybe is not responding to you in the best way, because by nature, we're group animals. We want to be with the mother. We want to be with the father. We want to be with those people who made us. It's tough to substitute that, no matter how hard these people do try. There is an effect, I believe, on a child. I'm 62 this year. I've watched my children grow for 28 years, my oldest. After 3 decades, you kind of get the idea of what works with kids and what doesn't. Not to mention that I've been a teacher for those 3 decades. So there is a big difference when they're in their home with their family, being nurtured a certain way, and even the best, and most of these people in daycare really do care. There's a difference, and I believe it does have an effect on these kids.
All right.
Oh, this is good. This one's great. I love this one.
Okay. I'll describe the correlation between home prices, babies born, and computer sales.
This idiot boy just hit the down arrow on his back.
Oh, that's going in.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. The 3 parts of this kind of perfect storm are the factor of the rise in housing prices. And the enjoyment I get is knowing that maybe I'm not crazy. When I look at the chart for housing prices put out by the census, U.S. government, I see this kind of straight line, bopping along, up and down, yep, little market fluctuations. We hit the 80s and it takes off. and then it kind of stabilizes again, and then we hit '08, and it flies off the top of the chart like the cartoon, where you have to cut the chart to put the peak. In the '80s, this happened around the same time you're going to see the Keating 5 scandal. In the 2000s, it happened at the same time with The Big Short and Too Big to Fail. In both cases, the home was seen as a commodity, not a home. The house was seen as wood, metal, cement, and they cashed in. Not the owners, the banks, the realtors, the mortgage companies. So with that crash together of monies, and now on top of that, was there a rise in daycare? Of course. No longer a one-income environment. It had to be two income. Well, at the same exact time, personal computers came into the space. They've been there forever. You know anything about the history of computers, and it is a course I teach. 1969, Xerox, underneath the name of the Palo Alto Research Center, produced the first desktop computer. A computer that could just sit on your desktop and work. Before this, it was entire rooms, right? Now, for $10,000, a lot of money, don't get me wrong, you could have a computer with a screen, just like we have today, with folders and documents and a mouse and a printer, set up in your den, with the internet. Not the web that we know today, but the bare bones internet. That was available 20 years before. Was it used the way it was? Again, because a marketplace, an economy will only come into place when there's a viable user. A viable user will make any product successful. No user, no success for the product. All the pieces weren't there yet. Okay, the thing I truly, truly believe, and the lack of governance is the part that kind of really pushed all three of these things together. When you realize the potential for the growth of an industry in your society, government and rules and laws tend not to hinder that growth. One of the great issues today with the web, reflecting back on this, is intellectual property and also copyright. There's a little interesting bit about copyright. Copyright will only stay true as long as it doesn't impede the growth of society. You can have a copyright on something, but that copyright will be allowed to be broken if by keeping that copyright, society is hindered. And that's a judgment in the court. So the three pieces, again, are marketplace manipulation, abusive use of technology, and the lack of governance. And that all, I truly believe, came to play at almost the exact same time. And if you look at the charts and statistics on this, you're going to see that it is true. 80s, 2000, homes. 80s, 2000, computers. 80s, 2000, Glass-Steagall, DMCA, net neutrality, ISP laws. This all is coming together. I really do not believe that three different entities, almost deities, can come together by pure chance. Something put these pieces together. Wow.
Right.
See what happened? Oh, that's okay. Good. So work. There you go.
Okay. Now we have purposely tried to keep our children in a separate small space as a means of protecting them from harm we are seeing all around. A harm we cannot there protect them from. This leads to keeping the calves in a small place where they keep an eye on them. Please elaborate.
So this to me is the introduction of fear into the family home. Yeah, just give me a second.
That's okay. Take your time.
Yeah. Trying to think. I truly made this point, and Tom Brokaw made the point within the same time span, which was really, and so did Thomas Friedman. And that's when I called Brian and I said, dude, no one listens to me. He says, yeah, you're not Tom Brokaw. I said, I can talk like him though. Oh, yeah. Anywho. One of the key things today also is that these children being moved into another place and what happens from that in the family unit. I don't believe any parent of a young child, when they get to college age, it's different. You wave from the parking lot. But I can't believe any parent with a young child enjoys dropping that 18-month-old or 1-year-old child off at a daycare facility and waving goodbye while that child maybe cries for mommy or daddy that morning. I can't believe anyone truly enjoys that feeling. They do it to make a better life. The thing that happens here is when this occurs is major things happen. Guilt, I would imagine, of the parents. I would imagine that maternal instinct or fraternal instinct kicks in very hard. I would imagine that that's incredibly exploded, and I shouldn't use that term, but incredibly grew on days like 9/11, when you were maybe at the office and your child was 20 miles away. Maybe you were working in downtown Manhattan and your child was in the suburbs, on the island, in Jersey, wherever. And that guilt you felt that day, and the guilt that you may have felt over the years since then, that how impacted that child was, how hurt that child was, your child was. I know I was able to drive home the 10 miles. My wife was home with the kids. The kids are at school no more than a mile from our house. We were tremendously upset. I could not imagine the impact, the stress, the guilt of leaving that kid in a daycare on that day. Much, much less stress. The kid is sick. The kid has a fever. The kid has a rash, and you have to bring them in because you can't get off from work. You know, we're talking about high-level jobs. Maybe you can work out a schedule, but you get down to the basic, typical family that has to show up at that, you know, one-story building in somewhere behind Route 110 where they have a job as a receptionist or a bookkeeper, whatever it is they're doing. And they have to leave that child that day because their boss can't understand. It's a 5-person shop, and if you're down 25% of your staff that day, it's a problem. You have to do that a couple of times, it's a bigger problem. Now, you can't quit the job because of the mortgage. You can't keep the kid at home because they're 2 years old. The stress of this, the guilt of this, the pain that this puts into the family unit, all for what purpose? For that $400,000 Levitt house that should really cost $80,000? I don't care. I'm past that point, and fortunately for me, I've worked pretty hard, believe it or not. I don't think academics do, but anywho, worked pretty hard to save my nickels, as my mother used to tell me to do, so my kids may not have to feel that stress. And that's what my parents primarily did for me. That stress kills the society, kills families, and as I told my sister 30-something years ago, this will kill the American family as we knew it, and it has. It's changed the dynamic to a point that's not working at all.
Right. Good stuff. Can you pull your mic up and
yeah.
clip it back and just slide? It slid down a little bit.
It slid down?
Yeah, and every now and again you can hear it run, but not a big deal. So even
That's fur.
yeah,
Like here?
yeah, in your top shirt. Yeah,
Can it
perfect.
stay? It just fell, right?
Good
That was
stuff.
fun. Perfect. So,
You can do it on your sweater if it's easier.
Right
On the
here?
sweater collar, yeah.
and that's going to hear me inside there? Like that?
Yeah, I just like it.
Is it turned around? Like, am I not doing it right?
You're doing it terrible.
I never was a technical person. Yeah, I didn't know if I was going to break it if I did that.
You can't break it.
Yeah, I can.
It's fine. I didn't pay for it. It's fine. There, we're good. All right, good. That was good. Chilling.
Oh, it's the second question. You see, this he's taking it from the writing, so of course the writing is fluid.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So here,
Well,
not a
just-
luxury but a necessity. What cause and effect does it have?
Well, we were talking about where we were going to go with the questions. It's like the book makes sense. Just follow the book. Follow the.
Yeah, right.
So that's why.
Yeah. Ow.
All right.
Look at
My
this.
headphones back on.
Similar to. Oh, we can start off with that game without the pain thing.
The what?
The question 60, page 62.
Did the
There's
child
a-
care? We did that.
Yeah, well, I'm saying if you do page 62, our parents trying to make up for quality time by coddling their children, right? Similar. Now, I won't spend a lot on that, but I want to tell the story about what was his name? Enda. And because we had similar families at similar times, doing similar things, and his great point with his thick Irish brogue.
Like, I'm
Ready?
ready.
Okay. Talking before about quality time, again, I really don't believe that there is such a thing. And I get it, Disney, the whole 9 yards. It's wonderful. It's a great thing. I will tell you right now, my mom died when I was 45 and she was 74. It's almost over 20 years ago. I would consider it quality time just to sit in a room with her today and not say a word for hours. That would still be quality time for me. I don't have to go to Disney or go anywhere with my mother. Just knowing she was in the room and getting that little sly smile about something I said, that's quality. So I don't still ever believe in that concept of quality time. I believe that every moment that you're with someone you love is quality time. You don't have to be doing anything. It's the quantity of the time you get to spend with them, to me, is the quality. And fortunately for my parents,